Assalamu alaikum and a great morning to everyone. My name is Rahma Miro, the fourth reporter. So let's not waste our time and start our discussion. By the way, for those assigned questionnaires, kindly type your questions in the in-call messages and I will answer it with all my best. So, my report is mini critique of the story As Long as the Grass Shall Grow. So upon seeing or reading the title of the story, I got confused. What is it all about, or what is the story behind? Why does the author entitled it in that way? Well, I am thinking that it's like somehow connected to the word hope. Um, the title reminds me of the Filipino sayings that hanggat may buhay may pag-asa. Yes, so uh, let's dig into it for our better understanding of the story. Um, so let's have some quick introduction of the author of the story. It was written by a famous Filipino writer, Carlos Sampayan Bulosan. If you can remember, Miss Alma Musa already introduced him to us during her report. So let's proceed. He is an English language Filipino novelist and a poet. He was born on November 24, 1913 and died in September 11, 1956. So some of his famous works were America is in the Heart, The Laughter of My Father, The Cry, and the Dedication, and more. Sorry. So, next slide. uh, if you have read if you have read the story of As Long as the Grass Shall, As Long as the Grass Shall Grow, in the content of the story, I observed that there were some words that were unfamiliar. So here are some of it. So we have five unfamiliar words with it, which is edelweiss. Next is ferocious. Next is nightingales, tabus, and perturb. So the first one is the edelweiss. So remember that edelweiss, it's a mountain flower. It belongs to the daisy or sunflower family. So the second word, which is ferocious, it refers to a violent, something that is very fierce. And this word is mostly used in animal, like example, ferocious carabao, like that. So the third word is the nightingales. So it's a European bird noted for its melodious song usually heard during evening. So the next is taboos. So it's a social religious custom prohibiting or forbidding things. It's like a restrictions. So some of the examples is the halal or haram in Islamic beliefs or practice. Lastly, the word perturb. So this word refers for an expression or feeling of uneasiness, anxiety, or concern. So I hope I added some additional vocabularies in you, classmates. So let's proceed. So As Long as the Grass Shall Grow is a proof of Bulusan's faith in Americans. The story is an appeal for better understanding between Americans and the people they discriminate against, particularly the brown race. So, the story of Carlos Bulusan is one of the evident of discrimination happening in America. As he lived there, different circumstances happened in his life, but it states there that it is Bulusan's fate in Americans, where we still don't know what does he gone through with the hands of Americans. But one thing is for sure, he was discriminated because of the differences between him and Americans. Uh, it also said here that the story voices out an appeal for and suggests a way to promote better understanding among different people. Well, in this story, you will also realize that sometimes it's not the race of a person, but the person itself. Di ba kasi, sometimes when a specific person did something bad, people will say, ay, ganyan kasi yung mga Muslim na yan, mga terorista kasi yan sila, mga mamamatay tao sila. Ganyan. That is why we have to promote better understanding among different people. So, let's proceed. These are some important lines from the story of As Long as the Grass Shall Grow. So, this is where the story begins. I had arrived in America, the new land, 3 months before, and came to this farming town to join friends who had years ago left the Philippines. So, this is very timely, no? Filipinos would rather choose to go abroad and work there, even though they might be discriminated. Well, we can truly understand naman what a person can do because of poverty. So, next is, when our work was done, we scrubbed the dirt off our bodies. I joined them in the rest suit, went to town to shoot pool at a familiar place. So, the story also defined some characteristics, culture, and tradition we have. Well, if you can observe, Filipinos have this nature like after a long hard day of work, even if it is a win or lose, Filipinos would actually go out together and unwind by playing, eating, and so on. Pati nga 'di ba sa pag-aaral, 'di ba, after examinations, quizzes, so small achievements, it's always the guys, street food tayo, or for those rich kids, guys, let's have some milk tea together. Ganyan after a long hard day of work. So so to continue, but some of my companions taunted me. Some of them even implied certain dark things that made me stop picking peas. Another distinct of Filipino culture, as depicted in the story, is a desire to work and not to educate oneself during Belusan's time, or even now, sometimes. So, why is that? That's the question. Why is that? Is it because of the poverty? Maybe. Is it because they got married at a very young age? That's why they have to work? Maybe. Well, the answer is Spaniards are to be blamed. But why? The question is why? Why again? Anong kinalaman ng mga Spaniards? Bakit mas ginugusto ng mga Pilipino dati na magtrabaho na lang kaysa mag-aral? So, it is because Spaniards never taught us the value of education. Kasi nga 'di ba, Filipinos are being mocked as Indios, mga walang alam, mangmang. So, for them to continue the wheel of life, you have to work. It was the Americans who gave the Filipinos the privilege to be educated. Just try to understand the words of an old man in the story. All evil is not confined in one race. All goodness in another. There is evil in every race, but there is also goodness in every other. And yet, all goodness belongs to the human race. So, yes, very well said. As I've said earlier, not because a single American discriminated a brown person, that means all Americans are racist. All Americans were bad. No exemption, no. Everyone is bad. All the Americans are bad. That's not how the story wants us to realize the life. And yet, all goodness belongs to the whole human race. Yes, lahat ng mabubuti ay kasama sa human race. Kumbaga, yung mga nagpapakatao. So, let's proceed. You are too young to be working. Would you like to do some reading under me? So, this was the time when Miss O'Reilly approached the young workers to offer them some education, even it is informal, as long as they learn. So, Miss O'Reilly is a model of a true dedicated educator of people in a foreign land who is concerned with Filipinos who were yearning to be educated. So, let's proceed. Then Miss O'Reilly told us she was forbidden by the school board to use the building at night. The directive was for us, of course. So like Filipinos before, we are not considered as full citizen of the land. They were not treated as same way as the Americans, especially in the field of education. That is why Miss O'Reilly did everything she could, even if it is not permissible. That is how much she was dedicated to educate them. During Bulusan's time, they were not allowed or permitted. The society would not permit them. The law would also not even permit them. So, lastly, someday I will come back in memory to this place, and time will be to come back to you with a book in my hands about all that we are feeling here tonight. So on the last part of the story, the main character did not just learn how to read and write. He showed his deep gratitude towards the person who never looked down on them, who was the one who encouraged them. Even it's just informal education, they were educated, cared at, especially for someone who he barely knew. So, at the end of the story, our main character was forever grateful for every single thing Miss O'Reilly taught him. So, as a future educator, Miss O'Reilly inspires us to be dedicated with our job to teach people who is yearning for an education. And also some of the lesson that we can get from the story is to be grateful for the privilege we have. We must remember that as long as the grass shall grow, kahit gaano kadaming tasks, kaya yan. As long as the grass shall grow, we must never give up and go for our goals. So that will be my report. Thank you everyone for listening.